Good day, YouTubers. This is part 7 of my video on Ontario Northland models that have been manufactured in HO. And today I want to take a look at products that have been brought to market by Model Power. Now, I've got a number of box cars here to look at, as well as some 2-bay covered hoppers. Starting with the box cars, there are some more vintage cars and then a more recent offering. So starting with the more vintage cars here. So Model Power released the 40-foot box car in 2 different paint schemes. One being the green progressive scheme, and the other being the later Chevron paint scheme, the blue and yellow. You've heard me say this in some of my earlier videos if you've tuned in, but this later progressive scheme in the blue here is a bit of a creative liberty because there were no Ontario Northland 40-foot box cars in unmodified form that were painted into that scheme. I've brought it up here a few times before, but I'll bring it out once again. This Athearn more recent offering here of the 40-foot box car probably represents still our most accurate illustration of what one of these box cars would have looked like today. There are quite a few details here that aren't right, but you've got the painted yellow ends and the modified 8-foot door. But back to the Model Power cars. So these older cars seem to have been manufactured by Play Art for Model Power. Now we'll see if we can get it in focus here or not. But if you can see between the ribs there is a Play Art symbol. It's a little hard to see, so apologies, but I have looked up Play Art, and there's a bit of information available. There is a Wikipedia page. They appear to have mostly manufactured slot cars and actual model cars. Seems that there's a bit of a following there of collectors. Now on into a more recent boxcar offering. I'm not too sure of the manufacturing history on this car. The hook coupler has me here. Bear with me a second while I get that uncoupled. So this boxcar, from what I can tell, it was something that was brought to market only 10 or 15 years ago, but it's very basic in detail. It seems to be a reuse of some much older molding. And again, it's a bit of a creative liberty. To what I know, there were no Ontario Northland boxcars that look quite like this. The shade of green is definitely off. They did paint the doors yellow on some of their box cars, but again, that's getting a little bit creative. Now, the 2-bay covered hopper, again, a creative liberty. From what I know, Ontario Northland didn't have any 2-bay covered hoppers. They did have a lot of cylindrical hoppers, but nothing quite along this lines. It seems like they did do multiple productions of this car over many years, as you'll see this car appearing in box styles 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. You know, I never quite understand why they would remanufacture the same car but maintain the same road number. I guess it's all about economies, but you think if they were trying to appeal to the model railroader out there that they would do a subsequent run in a different road number, but what do I know? And I don't know if any of you that know a little bit more about things out there can advise me, but you see this car's got the number 4 in the bottom. Well, these other cars have number 3 and number 2. So I've always been curious as to whether or not that represents different molds that they've come out of, or maybe it reflects different production runs. Now, for you that look at the packaging here, I've got 2 Model Power boxes. The first representing an earlier version of their boxes, probably from the 80s and 90s. And now a more modern box, what seems to be available here in the 2000s and beyond. So Model Power has been around for a while, and there is an earlier box iteration that I don't have, but if you look it up online, you can see versions. So I'm keeping this pretty short here today. I'm down to the last few manufacturers and items of what I'd consider vintage production for Ontario Northland. And I'll work to get another few videos up soon that take a look at the last of this. But if you do have any information for me, or if there's something that I've identified that you think lacks accuracy, feel free to reach out. Thanks as always. Have a good day.